Hello, everyone. Welcome to the backyard of Sidious Mag Airbnb number 2. Welcome to Eugene, Oregon, where this week we're watching the 2025 USATF Outdoor Championships go down, and day 1 wrapped up yesterday. It was a good day of throwing, the busiest day of throwing we're going to have with 4 events. We had both hammers and both javelins kind of overlapping on the schedule, which sucked a little bit, but what are you going to do about it? Especially sucks when you consider the fact that today there are no throwing events, so you think it would have been very easy to space those out better. But USATF is going to USATF sometimes, so that's the situation we're in. For right now, though, let's get into talking about some of these performances. We're going to start out with the men's javelin, which was the first final of the entire meet. The first throwing final as well, obviously. And there wasn't a ton of drama coming into this one because for Tokyo qualification purposes, Curtis Thompson has the standard. Mark Minicello Mark Minicello is well within the quota. They're the only two guys that are really all that close. So for Tokyo qualification, this was kind of like a foregone conclusion. Curtis makes the most of it. He wraps it up with an 83-89 to take the win, earns his 5th straight spot on Team USA. And for Curtis, I said coming into this one, he hadn't broken 82 since his season opener at Texas Relays when he threw 87-76. And I said coming into this one, like, he doesn't need to throw 87. But if he was able to pull out like an 84 or an 85, like that would show me he's in a good spot now, like 6 weeks out from Worlds. And he threw 83-89, which is essentially 84, backed it up with 82-44, 80-87, and 80-33. So 4 throws over 80, 2 well over 82, and those are the 2 best throws he's had since March. This was a really, really great series for Curtis, and basically exactly what you would have wanted. He takes the win by 6.5 meters, which is maybe more of an indictment on the state of American javelin throwing than it is really a testament to Curtis. But regardless, he stepped up. He won his, I think, 6th U.S. title, maybe, is what the number's at now. Anyway, he's got a bunch of them. But yeah, Curtis, in this one, he did everything he needed to do. He did it really well. Congratulations to Curtis. Dash Sermon of Nebraska finished 2nd. He's listed as unattached here, so I think that means he's out of eligibility, potentially. But this was a really good thing to see because he throws 77-28 in round 6 to move ahead of Mark Minicello, who finished 3rd at 76-81. And for Dash, like, last year was a really great season where, he threw 80 meters, had a couple other really strong marks. But this season, he wasn't quite up to that standard. If I'm remembering correctly, NCAAs didn't go super well for him either. But this is a really strong note to kind of finish his season out on, potentially. I don't know if he'd have any more competitions coming up because he's not, I don't think he's particularly close to the quota to try and make it to Tokyo. But if this is, in fact, the end of Dash Sherman's season, like, a runner-up finish at USA's is not a bad end of the season and definitely not a bad start to your professional career. I think, again, that's just speculating. I don't know if he's actually out of eligibility. For Mark finishing 3rd, I talked to him a little bit in the mix zone after, and speaking of that, I got 49.5 minutes of interviews with throwers yesterday. Mark Minicello, Janae Casnavoid, Brooke Anderson, Deanna Price, Rachel Richardson, Evelyn Bliss, Tarek Robinson O'Hagan, Daniel Haw, Trey Knight, Rudy Winkler. Those 10 throwers. I got interviews with them on this channel right now, all in one easy-to-digest video with timestamps. We're good to go. So listen to that. Either go back, listen to that, and then pop back to this one, finish it up. Do whatever order you want, but watch both of them because these throwers have good stories that deserve to be shared. and it was really fun talking to them for almost an hour yesterday, which was kinda crazy when I ended up, tallying it all up. But so I talked to Mark. Mark was one of the guys that I talked to, and he was saying that after Tucson, where he threw his PB of 82.65 back in May, he picked up a little injury there that's been affecting him on the runway ever since, and so that's why, like, he hasn't competed like, he's competed twice, I think, once in June, once in July, and then now at the end of July. And those marks have been kind of a step back from where he was at the beginning of the season, where he was throwing 82, 82, 80, 82 mid. Um, so that was just kind of some insight into why this season build hasn't been super like consistent for him, I guess you could say. But he's very excited about what this next month and a half is going to look like because he's very comfortably inside the quota. So this is like something terrible or amazing for a lot of other people would have to happen to bump him out of that quota and keep him off the team. Um, so yeah, he's now got a month and a half to just get right, get comfortable again in his approach, and then we'll see what happens from there when we get to Tokyo. But we will be sending 2 guys to Tokyo. Donovan Banks finished 4th at 76.36. He's the closest guy to getting into the quota, but obviously, there's 3 weeks before the window closes, so, she's got a chance or he's got a chance to try and get more rankings points, but I don't really know what meets would be available for that. Um, so he unfortunately needed a much better day here to give himself a real shot at going to Tokyo, so the team's in all likelihood gonna be Curtis and Mark, and honestly, that's a pretty solid team, and with the form they've been showing, it's definitely a step forward from just sending Curtis last year. So, good competition, and then like I said, Dash Sherman sniping Mark in round 6. He moved from 4th up to 2nd, it looks like, so a little bit of drama, a little bit of intrigue, and some excitement for this one too. Um, and then you've got women's hammer, which obviously I was unbelievably excited for because just going off the field, like this is one of the craziest events of the entire meet. And you've got Deanna Price, who dominates, takes the win here, 78-53. The series she put together, 78-33, 75-83, 74-74, 76-88, 77-77, 78-53. So she puts together against this field that had Brooke Anderson, Rachel Richardson, Janae Casnavoid, Janae Stewart, Annette Chickenwoke. She had the 5 best throws of the day. That is dominant. And I talked to her after, and she said this is the best shape she's been in since 2019 when she won Worlds. It's the best she's felt since 2021 when she set the American record at trials right before Tokyo. Like, she's fully back, and it's such a good thing to see. And she's just absolutely crushing. And beating Brooke like this in this commanding of a fashion is really incredible. And I don't think like I don't know, can you still say Cameron is the favorite over Deanna after a showing like this? Cameron threw last night at Canadian Champs, I think she threw like 77-70 or something, which obviously the competition isn't necessarily as great there. So she wasn't being pushed as much as Deanna was here. But I mean, it's tough to say with a series like that because it's not just one big mark. It was the whole series was ridiculous. Like she had 5 throws over 75-80. That's pretty incredible. So Deanna you couldn't realistically, like now a month and a half out from Worlds, she couldn't be in a better spot. So that's awesome to see. Brooke Anderson, who had the bye from the World Athletic Continental Tour last year, so she didn't need to finish top 3 because she has an extra spot essentially, but she does end up finishing 2nd. Not at her best day, where she has some foul issues, only 2 legal marks and 4 fouls. But one of the legal marks she got got the job done. She threw 75-14 in round 3, and I talked about a little bit in the preview how I was excited to see Brooke just get her legs back in a championship setting where there's not really necessarily pressure to compete on her. Obviously, there's still expectations, and this meet has bigger implications for like the global picture than just making the team to Worlds. But in terms of that, like essentially the purpose of this meet being a qualification for Tokyo, she didn't need to worry about that coming into this competition. And so it was good to see, even in this situation, she was still able to produce a mark like that. Like 75-14 is 4.5 meters off her season's best, but it's still a mark that I think would have won bronze in Paris last year, maybe. I forget what Ji Zhao threw. But that's still a solid mark, and if that's what she's at on not her best day, that's pretty exciting to see. Rachel Richardson finishes third, throws 74-57, and it's a similar day to what she had at pre, where she gets a legal first throw, and then the fouls start, and she's fouling them into the left side of the cage. But the difference with pre is this one, the mark was good enough. At pre, she threw like 72-30 on her first throw, and then fouled from there on out and finished last. This time she goes 74-57 on her first throw and hangs on for third to make her first national team, which it's been so much fun all year to watch the progression of Rachel, even through the ups and the downs. And I talked to her after and basically said, like, the downs she's had, which have been foul issues, where she's no marked 3 times. And then, like I said, in some other competitions, like, she's had very inconsistent or like one legal throw type of days. And she basically just said she's still getting used to being this good. And she's still getting used to being this fast and strong and moving in the circle the way that she does now. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, that makes sense, because when you're throwing 4 meters further than you were last year, it makes sense that there's that adjustment period. But I think getting a good one today, even in a meet where she did have foul issues, I think that's a good sign that she can maybe be more resilient to those than what we've seen in the past. Um, and now she's got a month and a half to get even more comfortable with everything heading into Tokyo at her first World Championships. So I can't wait to see what Rachel Richardson is going to do in Tokyo. Janae Casnavoid finishes fourth, 74-55, earns her spot back on Team USA thanks to Brooke having the bye. And this one, I mean, with Brooke, and obviously Brooke was going to make the team, but to see Brooke and Janae both make it back onto Team USA after what happened at trials last year, that made me happy. For Janae, it was also her best throw as her first throw. She went 74-55, and then not the best series behind it, but that's not what matters because it's USA's. So 1 mark is all you need. And Janae got that mark when it mattered with that 74-55 right off the bat. So now you have the bronze medalist from Eugene, the silver medalist from Budapest, heading back to Worlds. And she's got a month and a half to get even more back into the flow of things. And like she's shown, like, her opener this year was 76-42, I think is what she threw in Tucson. So she's shown like she's still capable of throwing those really big marks. She's still capable of being the type of thrower that won global medals each of the last 2 world championships. And I hope when we get to Tokyo, we can see like a full return to form for that, because if in Tokyo we have women firing on all cylinders, and it's Brooke, Rachel, Deanna, Janae, Cameron Rogers, Anita Vladarchik, Krista Turvo, Celia Kosonen, Ji Zhao, like, that could be one of the greatest finals in the history of like track and field, not just throwing, not just the women's hammer throw, like, that could be absolutely historic. And so I'm hoping by the time we get to Tokyo, all these women are there, they come ready to play, and they just flat out dominate. Janaea Stewart finishes 5th in this one. Great series from her with a season's best of 72-87, 71-48 to back it up, and then was chasing a big throw to try and make the team in rounds 5 and 6, it looks like. Annette Chickenwoke finishes 6th, and so the Olympic silver medalist doesn't make Team USA the year after winning silver in Paris, which is that's the best statement about women's hammer throw in the US that you can make, about just how insanely good we are. For Annette, 71-61 was the mark today. A consistent series, but obviously not where she wants to be at. And it felt like this season, she had kind of been a step behind some of the other top women in the US. And so if you were looking at when the bye, when it was announced that Brooke had the bye, and it was like, all right, we're taking 4, it felt like, barring Rachel having foul issues, which she did yesterday, but still managed her way through it, it felt like it was going to be Janae versus Annette for that last spot. And even in that situation, like, I still trusted Janae a little bit more to find a way to get it done on the day. So to see Janae do that was good to see. Obviously, like, it's heartbreaking for Annette, but also, like, she has the Olympic silver medal. Like, she has that career-defining moment from last year. So, I mean, she'll be back. Like I said, this season is, like, marks-wise, it's the best of her career. It's way better than she was coming into trials last year. So, and it's not like her season is over now. So now if we have an angry Annette Chickenwoke who's looking for a little bit of revenge, that could be something fun to watch in the coming meets. There is a women's hammer competition at the Diamond League in Silesia that I talked to Janae and Brooke, and they were both saying they're probably going to head out there. So that one could be really fun, because you figure if it's a European meet, good chance that maybe Celia Kosonen or Krista Turvo will be there. Potentially Cameron heads out too. So that could be a really good one to keep an eye on. I think Silesia is like 2 weeks from now, maybe. So keep your eyes peeled. And let's move on to women's jav now, where the Evelyn Bliss breakout has just, I don't want to say reached its apex yet, because she's going to Worlds. I'm 99% certain. But it's reached a new level, because Evelyn Bliss, at 20 years old, is a U.S. champion in the women's javelin, throwing 57-77. She also threw 57-53, so she ends up with the 2 best throws on the day. I do feel a little silly, because I said, I was like, no, like, there's no way she would win in 56 mid. And, like, she didn't win in 56 mid, but she could have won in 56 mid, because Madison Wiltrout was runner-up at 56-46. But for Evelyn, like, she isn't completely coming out of nowhere. Like, she was the U.S. U20 champion last year. She was the World U20 bronze medalist, throwing 54 meters as a 19-year-old, which that's a really good mark. It's not like she's coming out of nowhere, but the speed with which she has ascended to the top of the U.S. is genuinely insane. Like, she threw, I think, 57.07 at West Regionals, or East Regionals, maybe, back at the end of May, but then finishes 12th at NCAAs. A month later, throws 60-81 at the World University Games. A week after that, is a U.S. champion. And like I said, she needed 56 mid and the win to move into the quota, I believe. So throwing 57 high and the win definitely should get her in there. So it was really cool to see, and I got the chance to talk with her after, and it's so nice, because, like, it seems like she's just as surprised as anyone else by just how meteoric her rise has been this year. Um, and it's been really impressive seeing. It's been one of the most fun stories in throwing to follow over the last week and a half or so. And, like, she threw 60, 81, and then threw 57, I think 37 in the finals at World University Games to finish second, and you're like, "Okay, is she gonna be able to replicate that at USA's, though?" And she can. And, like, we now have a 20-year-old throwing a shade under 61 meters, consistently well over 57 now, and she's a US national champion already, and she's gonna be going to the world championships. Like, Evelyn Bliss is having the one of the best starts to a career you could possibly imagine, and it's really good to see, especially with Winger retiring. Maybe Evelyn is coming to fill that Kara void and lead this next generation of American women's jav throwers. Um and, like, it's a really good generation to be leading because I talked about a little bit in the preview that so many of the best Americans this year are collegians. When you look at Evelyn, Kelsey Oldroyd of Utah Valley, who finished 4th here, Maddie Harris of Nebraska, who finished 5th. Like, it's a really strong group of, like, 18 to 23, 24-year-old Americans right now in the women's javelin, and Evelyn is kind of that figurehead right now. I mean, Maddie Harris also has a national title from 2023, throwing over 60 meters, but it's great momentum for Evelyn, and I'm excited to see she keeps surprising us, so if she is in fact qualified for Tokyo, which, like I said, is not a certainty, but I'm, like, 99% sure, um, I'm excited to see how many more people she can surprise there. Madison Wiltrout did finish 2nd, throwing 56.46. She was the only other woman over 56 on the day, and not super dramatic for Madison, where she was in 2nd, or she was leading, I think, the whole competition until Evelyn passed her in round 3, and then she was sitting in 2nd. Didn't really matter for her because she's very comfortably in the quota, so she'll be headed to Tokyo. Like I said, Maddie Harris, who finished 5th, she was right on the edge of the quota coming into this one, and, like, I don't think she's not gonna get bumped down because of this performance, but a better day here would've secured her spot a little bit more. So, that would have been encouraging to see. I'll still need to do some math and see where she sits now. It also depends on, like, what happens at other national championships and whatnot. Um, but Maddie still has a chance to make it to Tokyo, especially if she can get another competition or 2 in and get some solid marks before the qualification window closes. Um, but yeah, so Maddie Harris is kind of a question mark for Worlds, but Evelyn and Madison should be good to go. And that's exciting to see because in both javelins last year, we sent 1 athlete. This year, we're gonna be sending at least 2 in both. So that's improvement. That's what we like to see, baby. Men's hammer now. Oh, I just realized I went out of order because I think oh, no, men's hammer was the last thing on the schedule. Okay, perfect. It was the Rudy Winkler show, to nobody's surprise. He goes 4 times over 80, 81.47, 80.85, 80.78, 80.41. He's on another level right now. Like, this is it's just so impressive to see what he does meet in and meet out. Like, he's now been, I think, 5 times over 80 this year, 3 times where he hasn't broken 80. So he's simply on a tear. He's so good. He said it's kind of, like, up in the air whether or not he'll be competing again before Worlds, I think is what he said. There might be a domestic meet he was looking at, potentially going to Europe, but he recognized he's probably not gonna be. So we'll see about that. But that's enough Rudy talk because this is already at 24 minutes, which is a little longer than I was hoping it to be, but who's surprised? Trey MF Knight, 2 months ago, fouls out of NCAA West Regionals, ends his collegiate career essentially in the worst way possible. He comes here today in round 6. There's 78-76, moves from 6th up to 2nd on the final throw of the competition, gets the world standard, throws a huge PB, punches his ticket to Tokyo. You can't script anything better than that. That was so good to see from Trey. He's such a nice guy. I've got to talk to him twice now this month because I talked to him in LA and now here as well. And he's just the best. And to see this, and just like the thing I talked about with him is the resilience to have that day at regionals. Don't let that derail your season though, and bounce back. And not just, to quote Sha'Carri Richardson from 2023, Trey Knight is not just back, he's better. He's bounced back, and he's bounced back, and he's now over 78 twice in the last month. He threw 78 for the first time in Portland on June 15th. So a month and a half. But he's in a good spot heading into Tokyo. We'll see if he competes anytime before then, but there's no way you can't like what Trey's doing when he's in the best form he's ever been in. Daniel Haw finishes 3rd, earns his 6th straight appearance on Team USA, every team since Doha, 77-28. Same situation as Brooke, where he had 4 fouls, only 2 legal throws, but he got it done. And, he hasn't been the season hasn't been going exactly as well as years previously have for him. And so I talked to him about it after, because that is true, but he's also delivered every time he's had to. Like, his 3 best competitions of the year, I believe in order, are pre the Tucson Throws Festival and now US champs. So he's bringing it when it matters, which is exactly what you want from a guy of his experience level. But I talked to him a little bit about that in the mix zone, and he said, like, him and his coach approached this season differently than any other season, where they want to be throwing PBs in July and August and September, and not in May and June like he has in years past. So they've been doing a lot more heavy ball work leading into this year. And they're just kind of starting to get into competition weight throws. I believe he said that which is where he said his season's best of, I think, 78-55 came. I think he said like a week before that is when they first started throwing with the 16-pound hammer. And so if that's the case, like, it's pretty impressive to see where he's at right now. And it's like reassuring that this season hasn't just been horrible for him. Or not, okay, horrible is an exaggeration, but it's not that there's like something wrong this season. It's that this season is going perfectly according to plan, and now he's ready for some really big marks coming up, because like he's gonna need really big marks. This is a guy like Rudy who's been, like I said, at the last 6 world championships and Olympics, but the U.S. hasn't medaled on the global stage since Lance Steele in 1996. And for that to be the case this year, you're probably going to need to throw like 81 meters. So with Daniel knowing and planning to have more in the tank when Tokyo rolls around, it's like I said, it's reassuring. Top to bottom, this competition was ridiculous. Like last year, men's hammer was awesome. It was also a little bittersweet because you had like all the guys towards the bottom of the field, like were throwing PBs or season's best, just dropping bombs, and none of them ended up going to Paris because none of them were qualified. That wasn't going to be the case this year because we had so many guys that were qualified. And now we end up sending 3 guys with the standards. So that's really cool. But this year, I mean, they still brought it, and it was genuinely awesome. Tanner Berg went 76-93 off the rip in round 1, and I feel so bad for him because he finishes 4th, but he was in 3rd he was like in 2nd and then third, basically the entire competition until Trey unseated him in round 6. Like, obviously, I love Trey, so I wasn't too sad about that, but for Tanner, the season he's had where he was throwing like 73 last year, now he's up to a shade under 77, almost making the U.S. team. It's incredibly exciting thinking about where he could be at next year as he continues to develop. I think I'll have to double check, but I believe he graduated in 2022. So he's probably like 26 now, which is just kind of starting to scratch the surface of like your peak years as a thrower. So I'm very excited to see how he continues to build off the momentum of this year. Tyler Williams, who was he's another American with the standard. It was him, coming into this meet. It was him, Rudy, and Daniel who had the standard. He threw 76.84, which I think is the second best competition of his life. He got that in round 6. So it was a solid series for him to that point with a bunch of 74s, 73s, a 75 in there as well. And then he finds the big one. Just on this day with the depth of this field, it wasn't quite big enough. But still, the promise he showed this year, at this point in his career, where like I was talking to Jason Kuhn of Throws U, who, Tyler works with them, and like he's been grinding away at this professional scene for so long. And then this year was such a breakthrough for him. And it sucks that it doesn't end with a trip to Tokyo. But I know he'll be back next year, still with that fire, maybe even a little more fire next year. And so I'm excited to see the jump that US Hammer made from last year to this year has been so impressive. And it's all the same guys, and they're just going to get better. So I'm excited to see unfortunately, there's no Worlds next year, and I seriously doubt Hammer is a part of the World Ultimate Championships, but we're still going to have USAs next year, so that should be an absolute battle, which I'm really excited for. Tarek Robinson O'Hagan, 76.54, the second best mark of his career, and then Justin Stafford throws the season's best of 76.33. At USAs, it took 76.33 to finish 7th. That's crazy. That's genuinely wild. Like, you see that like at Worlds or the Olympics sometimes, where it's like 76.33 to make top 8. And that's the state we're at in the US right now. Like, I think the men have seen the women have all the fun the last couple years in the Hammer, and they're like, we want to have some fun too. So they've just decided to start throwing really far. And you love to see it. So that does it for day 1 of the throws here at USA's. Like I said, today, no throws, unfortunately. We get to tomorrow is women's shot and men's disc. And then Sunday is men's shot and women's disc. For previews of those, head to citysmag.com for the written preview, or go back and watch my hour and 43-minute preview from a couple days ago of the whole meet. Those ones, they're going to be barn burners because it's a handful of the best in the world in every event, just like we saw in the Hammers yesterday. And I can't wait. Today's going to be a slog fest with no throws, though. But what are you going to do? Every day can't be perfect, but every day in Eugene is pretty perfect. I love it here. That's all I got for this time. Like I said, I'll link the interview video in the description, so check that out. That's on my channel right now. 49 minutes of interviews with throwers. You're welcome. Follow Pauly Throws on Instagram, P. Hoff Mahoney on Twitter for those interviews live as they go up, and some live coverage as well. And yeah, that's all I got for you guys this time. And so I will see you, I guess, Sunday morning for another one of these, or maybe Saturday night, because Saturday ends early, but we'll see you back sometime. So see you then.